of Radio Maria Kenya Kisumu Facebook page and all our listeners wherever you are, I take this humble opportunity to welcome you to our program this evening, whereby our guest, Madam Brenda Akinyi, is already here with us so that she can take us through week 6 discussion. This week's theme is Faith Leaders as Awakeners of Conscience. Yeah, so faith leaders as awakeners of conscience. So that is what Madam Brenda Akinyi will be taking us through this evening, as that is the topic of week 6 under the main theme, breaking the chains of corruption. So I guess wherever you are listening to us from, or wherever you are watching us live from, I guess you are ready so that we can get to listen to what Madam Brenda has prepared for us this evening. Madam Brenda, good evening.
Good evening, Brian.
How is the day?
Fine. I've had a great day and I hope it is ending well.
That is good. So we take this opportunity to welcome you to Radio Maria Kenya Kisumu studio. And we would like to welcome you so that you can take us through this week's topic, which is faith leaders as awakeners of conscience. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Brian. Okay, the sensitization on corruption continues. As you've told our dear listeners and viewers of Radio Maria Facebook page, today our focus is on faith leaders as awakeners of conscience. So we want to understand how faith leaders, what role faith leaders have in developing the conscience of our people, especially in regards to corruption, because previously we said that conscience, that is the God's first classroom. Where there is no conscience, then definitely there is nothing that can go right. So today we will make reference to a scripture from the book of Isaiah 58, and also the Catholic social teaching, that is the church in the modern world. And our theme today is forming conscience and confronting corruption. So basically there are 4 key topics that we will be going through today. So just allow me to quickly take our dear listeners through the same, then probably we'll have to give them an opportunity to have questions if they have. So dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today we reflect on important question. What does true worship mean in our daily lives? Our reflection, like I've said, is based on the book of Isaiah 58, where God speaks strongly to his people. The people were praying, they were fasting and performing religious practices, but at the same time, injustice was happening around them. Then God asked, I would read from the book of Isaiah 58, verse 6. Is this not the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free. That is Isaiah 58, 6. So you realize that God makes something very clear. He does not accept worship that ignores injustice. Many a times you realize that people pray, we may fast, we may attend, a church every Sunday. But then, if we support corruption or remain silent when others suffer, our worship becomes empty. And that is very clear from the verse. I repeat, is this not the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free. So we cannot be lying that we support corruption, or rather, we listen when others suffer, and yet we claim we are true worshippers of God. It simply means that our worship is very empty. Today, unfortunately, Corruption is the greatest forms of injustice, especially in our country, Kenya. I know this extends even to other African countries, which is very unfortunate. You realize that when public money is stolen, so many things suffer. For instance, our hospitals will go without drugs or medicine. Our schools will lack, basic stationaries like books, even teachers. We've had situations whereby the government has established, primary schools or secondary schools, but no teachers are posted there. So parents end up, paying the so-called BOG teachers to take care of their children. And again, where public money is stolen, the roads remain poor. Young people lack opportunities because those who do not merit those positions have either taken them up or they have given them to relatives or, other people who do not qualify for such positions. In such a case, then we should ask ourselves, who suffer most? In our context, you realize that the poor people suffer the most. And I want to believe this is applicable even in other contexts, not necessarily within our communities, not within our nation, Kenya, but could be even in other countries apart from Kenya. Corruption ties people down. Corruption blocks development, and corruption steals hope from the people. The previous year was a jubilee year of hope, the pilgrims of hope, where social concerns are not addressed in a society. People tend to lose hope in their leadership. People tend to lose hope in their systems. People tend to lose hope in all the structures that ideally should be supporting them to instill hope in every individual. God says, break every yoke. That means remove anything that oppresses people. If you realize that something is oppressing the people, that is the yoke that you are called upon by God to remove. True worship must lead to justice. There is no way we are going to claim that we are true worshippers of God, and yet the end result of our action does not lead to justice. What we see is injustice. What we see is people killed on the streets. What we hear of is abduction. What we hear of is public resources looted, money lost, such like things, lack of medicines in our health facilities. That is injustice. So faith must be seen in our action. From the book of Isaiah, the same chapter, that is 58, verse 7, I read, "Share your bread with the hungry. Bring the homeless, poor into your house." That is the word. But you realize that corruption does the opposite. Corruption takes bread from the hungry. It takes resources meant for the poor people and places them in the hands of a few. As Christians, we cannot ignore this because our faith calls us to defend the vulnerable and protect what belongs to everyone. The moment you as an individual, you've pocketed what was meant to benefit the public, that is corruption. And you are practicing and advancing injustice. You are taking away bread from the hungry, which is against the word. So basically, that is, more of an introduction, because we want our dear listeners to understand what is the correlation of true worship and justice. Is true worship consistently going to a worship place, like, every day before you report to work, you go to church, for the morning mass, then you report to work, late in the evening you go for a mass, Sundays you spend your all time in church, and yet back at home you are that character who sees their neighbors go hungry but do not provide them with food. You see some mama in the village, somebody is taking their own piece of land, but you keep quiet simply because, like we said last time in Kiswahili, hainiusu. So as Christians, really, we are called to reevaluate our attitude. We are called, really, look at yourself again. Get to understand this action that I'm about to undertake. Does it lead to justice or injustice? If it leads to injustice, then you need not to pursue it further. If it leads to justice, then that is the right path to take. Then we move to the second topic. We want to look at the Catholic social teaching, that is the church as the modern world. How corruption is a moral and spiritual issue. Many a times people think that corruption is a moral decadence. Corruption is a moral concern. While yes, it is a social concern, today we will get to understand why it is also a spiritual issue. And that's why today we are looking at how faith leaders are seen as awakeners of conscience. The church teaches us that social problems are all spiritual problems. The church in the modern world, and I read, the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of people are the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the follower of Christ. This means the church cannot separate faith from daily life. When people suffer because of corruption, the church must care. The church must come out and direct the people on the right, path to follow. There is no way what we practice in our daily life would contradict our faith, and yet we still call ourselves true worshippers of God. That would be an outright contradiction. So anytime people suffer because of corruption, we expect the church to come forward and show us the direction. We expect to hear from the church, because the church has that prophetic voice. We have, like, the priests, we have the bishops. Generally, anybody who is anointed man of God, there is that prophetic voice that they give, and it is what directs the people on what is right. Corruption is not just political. It is moral. It is a sin. Why? Corruption destroys trust. Corruption damages society. Corruption harms human dignity. It is as a result of corruption that we've had, for instance, in Kenya, so many Gen Zs lose their lives because they came out to defend their rights. They came out to condemn injustices that we are experiencing in our nation. It is corruption that, because they were dissenting what was wrong, they had to lose their lives. And that is against human dignity. I remember on Saturday, during the 2026 Diocesan Lenten campaign launch at St. Joseph the Worker, Ugunja Parish, our Archbishop Maurice Muhatia Makumba, in his homily, he states very well that no human person should lose their lives in an unnatural way. Unnatural way. Meaning, it is believed that if anybody was to die, then that death should be natural. Anything that is artificial, man-made, you are forced to go. You've lost your life at such a time when you are not meant to, to die. That is not natural. And that is against human dignity, which is one of the principles of the Catholic social teaching. The Church also teaches us that human dignity must be respected and protected in every social system. Respect human life. Everyone has a responsibility in the society to play. Human life is sacred. Human life is precious. It's not something that, you just sit down somewhere, you have a discussion, and then you say, today we are going to terminate the life of so-and-so. That is very wrong. And it is sad to report that, those are some of the things that we see in our society today. I remember where I come from my own community. We've had a very bad case, whether to classify it as corruption or a homicide or a femicide, I really don't understand. But a woman comes from work, the whole day she's toiled for her children, just doing, some grocery shop at the, village market. Then this woman leaves, closes the shop, goes back to her house. Along the way, she's waylaid, she's raped, she's killed, and the body just dumped there. Before we engage in such acts, do we really think of, the beneficiaries of this person? While you may have a motive to finish somebody's life, do you think of the kids that depend on this parent? It is so inhuman to kill somebody, you end up raping them, and then you leave, the whole body exposed, and then you dump their body just adjacent to their homesteads. So these are some of the immoral acts that we really have to come out to condemn. And I believe the faith leaders have a role to play in this, because if this goes unanswered, even the little ones, they grow up knowing this is the way to go. So such acts must be condemned by all terms possible. Every person has dignity because they are created in the image and likeness of God. And that is what the Bible tells us. When someone demands a bribe, for instance, from you, then they deny you justice. They abuse power. They hurt others for personal gain. And all those aspects go against human dignity. This is an outright violation of human dignity. And we must understand that fighting corruption is defending human dignity. Anybody who's come out there to fight corruption is actually defending human dignity. Like I said, corruption erodes trust in people, in systems, in institutions, call them, and even the society at large. Corruption deprives us of, those basic societies that should benefit, basic resources that should benefit the society. If that is the case, then we are called upon to come out to defend human dignity. That which is stolen from us will definitely have a very negative impact on the people. As a result, everybody in the society will suffer, at times including the people who are involved in that scandal. Another important teaching about, the church is we are talking of conscience. We looked at conscience, I think that must have been week 3 of our sensitization program, when we looked at what is conscience. And I cannot overemphasize it any further. Conscience is the most secret core and a sanctuary of a person where one is alone with God. You as an individual, there are moments that, you just want, that solace. You get yourself into, a quiet place just to have dialogue with God as an individual, not necessarily in church. Could be maybe when you are at home, any person that you choose to have, a meeting, a dialogue with God. Corruption begins when conscience is ignored. This often starts small, like today, I've gone to a place, I need services, then somebody tells you, maybe you are expected here, we need to print this, and before we print, probably you need to give us like 100 bob. You may see it as very little. Then you give that 100 bob, and then according to you, you see it as something very little. You say like, just 100 bob. That is just a small token. If I can give it and get myself, the services I want, why not? Just a small token. Remember, it will happen to you. Another person will come another time, they will be asked for the same amount, they'll give. And then it becomes a culture, such that anytime you go for services, you give. And if you gave 100 bob yesterday, when you come back today, probably the amount rises. With time, it becomes something very big. Why? Because you entertained it. We said that, and this is in law, bribe is an offense, both to the giver and the receiver. Both parties are responsible for their action. Do not think only that person who is demanding you bribe is the person offending. If you accept to give that bribe, you are contributing to corruption. Actually, you are advancing corruption in our society. We have small compromises that end up growing into bigger sins. And that's why, really, you should be very careful when somebody asks you for a bribe, you give it out. Another time you are asked for, you give it out. Such actions grow in nature. To an extent that after some time, you realize that what you perceived to be a small token is now something, a very big problem, a big issue that is outgrowing the society. Nobody can address it. And that's when people, come out of the streets. We see the Gen Zs, all of them on the streets, because they feel, something is wrong. It started actually when we get to understand why the Gen Zs had to behave the way they behaved. This simply meant that this group have lost trust in the Kenyan democracy. Secondly, they had lost trust in our leaders, and I'm talking of leaders whether in the political space, organizational level. We have the judiciary, all those institutions. The Gen Zs had lost hope in all those structures and systems, and that's why they resorted to the streets. Simply because we did not just wake up one day and realize that one tribe or some tribe were occupying a bigger percentage of government positions. This is something that started kidogo kidogo. The tribalism that we witness today in our society, and it is not just only in the Kenyan national government system, even back to our counties where we come from, we've devolved tribalism, we've devolved nepotism, we've devolved clanism to an extent that if you go looking for employment, unaulizwa unatoka api. In fact, the clanism plays a very big role. Utaulizwa unatoka wapi. If you don't identify with probably the correct clan or the politically correct clan, then most likely you will not get any employment opportunity. It started small. It was entertained simply because people saw it and they went silent on it. Today, it has grown. It is a huge social concern that requires all of us to come out to address. We have people with the capacity to address it. We have people with authority to address it. But for one or the other reason, they have chosen not to, because they feel if they are going to address these gaps, then probably the system will work against them. Therefore, faith leaders must help people to form strong conscience. As a faith leader, it is your responsibility to help your faithful form strong conscience. And this can be done through, your homilies, your interactions, with the Christians. When you visit the small Christian communities, what message do you pass to them? When you meet the youths, when you meet the various groups within our church, what message do you pass to them as a faith leader? A strong conscience knows the difference between right and wrong. If anything, conscience is knowing the difference between right and wrong. A strong conscience refuses dishonesty. When you truly know somebody is dishonest, even if whatever they were about to do was meant to benefit you and you refuse it, that is a strong conscience. Lastly, a strong conscience chooses what is right even when it is difficult. A time comes when choosing, or rather letting your conscience dictate what action you take becomes costly to you as an individual in the short run. But in the long run, it benefits everyone. People have lost life for speaking the truth. People have lost lives for being honest. But then you realize that we have that category of people that they just know something is wrong, but because they fear retaliation, they fear the possible consequences, that fear of unknown, they choose to be dishonest. They simply say, no, me, I don't know. And yet they know that such a thing has, disappeared from this place. I saw somebody took it, but because I know if I say it, then these would be the consequences, so I choose to keep quiet. That is very wrong. Then we move to the third topic, where we want to understand the role of faith leaders. The role of faith leaders. And when we make reference to the fight against corruption, we realize that faith leaders have a key role and a responsibility to play in our society. Faith leaders are called to be prophetic voices, like I said, because prophets will speak the truth even when it is uncomfortable. And when I talk of a prophetic voice here, what I mean is, we have anointed men and women of God. Those who will speak the truth, the bitter truth, leave alone the self-proclaimed prophets. I'm not referring to them. Genuine faith leaders, not the faith leaders that are leading to cases of violent extremism, not the extremists. They have a responsibility to speak the truth, even if that responsibility was costly. And for this reason, I'm a proud member of the Catholic Church. I admire what the Conference of Catholic Bishops have come out to do publicly, to speak the truth. Whether it is uncomfortable or not, they will always speak it because they believe it will address that social concern. And that is the way to take. So we are lucky we have role models in our church leadership. Why can't we also embrace what they are doing? Why can't we also be ambassadors of, ambassadors of, good things that really should happen in our society? Why can't we be ambassadors of that change that we want in our society? Why do we go below the tables? Why do we go behind the curtains? Why do we hide ourselves at times when the truth is needed, but there is nobody to out? If faith leaders remain silent about corruption, there are certain things that are likely to happen, and some of them we've experienced. One, people will lose moral direction. And I think that is when, like the example I've just given, like, chicken comes in. We lose moral direction. That human nature haiko tena. The society will definitely lose guidance. There is nobody to show us direction. And not just direction, the moral direction we are speaking of. So, the society, loses guidance. Everybody wants to do things, the way they want. Nobody to show the direction, nobody to lead. Everybody is their own leader. Everybody is right. Everybody is wrong in their own capacities. And then evil will continue unchecked. The evil in our context is corruption. So if faith leaders remain silent, the society also lose guidance, then corruption will thrive in our society. Because there is nobody to condemn it. Nobody wants to talk about it. For several reasons, probably because they are beneficiaries of the system. or maybe they fear for their lives. Quite a number of reasons. Silence weakens the moral authority of the church. And therefore, I would challenge all faith leaders to embrace speaking the truth. For when you choose silence, when you see an injustice, then you are weakening the moral authority of that church. A time comes that even you, as a faith leader, people will not be able to listen to you. Just like the Gen Z said, and I remember this very well, like even the religious leaders have been compromised. Have you ever imagined how our communities or the society would be if everybody lost faith in their religious leaders? The moment that happens, that would be like a headless society. Like I've said, everybody ni mkubwa kivyake. People will be doing their own sort of things, very bad things, some of which I wouldn't wish to mention. So the religious leaders must come out to give that moral direction. The religious leaders must always speak out the truth, even if it is uncomfortable, even if it is going to cost them something. Speak out that truth, for in that truth we get justice. In that truth, the oppressed get relieved. Preaching must connect faith with daily life. Whatever the religious leaders preach to the Christians or to the believers must connect with the realities of life. Do not talk of something that is out of space. It is known very well the challenges that are facing our societies today. If, for instance, you are preaching something that relates to a social concern in our society, we have so many cases that probably you would align your preaching to just to address some of those cases that are really a challenge to our society. It would be wrong, for instance, for a preacher to leave a serious issue within their society and, talk of something that is in the book or probably does not apply in their immediate context. The challenges could be many, but bring it home. Bring your preaching home. Connect your, preaching with the daily lives of the people. Talk about that uncomfortable topic that people fear speaking about. Because even corruption, like we said, it is in the churches. It is in our homes. Corruption is with us, with me as an individual. So if you don't speak it out, at times when you challenge us, that is when we look at ourselves and then we realize, oh, truly, I am a sinner. That is when I am able to see my sins. I confess and start a new life. But if we are going to probably make references to issues out of our context, people will hardly understand what you are talking about. And for that reason, they may not get your point. Faith leaders must teach Christians that corruption is a sin. They must encourage honesty and accountability, both at home and even away from home. Faith leaders must come out to defend the weak and the poor. As a faith leader, it would be wrong to see a poor person getting oppressed around your area and then you keep quiet. At times, the solution may not lie with you, but your intervention may be very key in addressing that issue. Leaders also must lead by example. We are talking of preaching water and taking wine. In this case, that which you tell us, let us see it in you. Nobody is perfect. We are all human. We have all our shortcomings and weaknesses, But as a human, I know our preachers, the faith leaders, there is a way people believe in you. There is a way people trust whatever you are saying. That which you tell us, we should see it in you. If the church spoke about integrity, it should practice it. Like, we expect the church to be very transparent in its processes. Let people understand how, certain processes are run within the church. If, for instance, you are a board member of an organization, not necessarily within a church setup, you want probably to audit, their finance reports. You want to understand how their recruitment processes are done. You want to understand maybe a facility, how the drugs bought are dispensed. Just for the people to account for everything. And you, back at your parish, back, to where you work, everything, is blurry. People do not understand your processes. People would contribute to you. They do not understand how those resources are spent. Christians really feel happy when they contribute and they are, updated on how their contributions are spent. Like, for instance, we had a project, maybe to put up, I would say maybe a parish office. A parish office has been constructed. The Christians need to know how whatever they contributed supported that construction work or that project. If, for instance, the parish council go quiet, the parish priest, or maybe other faith leaders in different contexts from different communities, do not tell Christians how they have spent their resources. Another time you want resources from them, it will be a tall order because nobody would know how you spend them. That is when blame games come in. Accusation could be wrongful or right. People start, throwing fingers at each other, one another. So let all the processes be transparent as much as possible, and people should be held to account to their actions. Church structures must show proper financial accountability, fair decision making, and responsible leadership. When leaders live with integrity, people will notice that. Unity among Christians is also important. And what brings that unity? It is responsible leadership. When churches speak together against corruption, their voices become stronger. It would be very hard for an individual church to, advance the fight against corruption. But when we have different voices coming together to speak about corruption, then it is strengthened and our voices will be heard. Let's have the Catholic, the KCCB, speak about corruption. Let's have NCCK. Let's have the EAK. Let's have the Muslim, the SUPKEM, the NAMLEF. All those groups come together to speak about corruption. For sure, their voices will be heard and something will happen from our families, our societies, our counties, and even the nation at large. Probably, if all our faith communities were to come together to honestly speak about corruption, they may be used as a model in other countries. Division weakens message. When we have different faith communities, we have some who want to advance the fight against corruption. Then we have other faith communities that are pulling back. That is when now Satan comes in. They will take advantage of, you see, even these religious leaders, they're not speaking a common voice. When, for instance, we have KCCB come out to speak about corruption, then other faith communities pull back. That is very wrong. But we need a situation whereby, of course, something that is well investigated and we have solid evidence that, of course, there is a corruption taking place here or took place here. Why don't we have, like all faith communities, come out to condemn that? Because such concerns affect everyone, not just people from a particular faith community. It affects everybody in that community. The church must be a light in society. Where you see the church, there should be light, and that light should light our society. Instances whereby people lose confidence in the church should not arise unless that is not a true servant of God. Because where we have true shepherds of God, they should be able to give moral direction. They should be able to show us light in the society. They should be able, to collaborate in addressing some of these social concerns, including corruption. From the book of Isaiah, we are promised that then your light shall break forth like the dawn. That is Isaiah 58:8. Integrity makes the church shine. A church full of integrity shines. Everybody is happy, right from the topmost leadership to the Christians. You see that vibrance in the faces, of everyone who is, part of that church. But where there is no integrity, people go to church, then you see people in silos, people are in camps, talking their own issues because something is not right. When leaders are courageous, hope is restored. I remember before we started this fight against corruption, one of our facilitators, that was Dr. Mukwa, a Jesuit brother working at Loyola Center for Media and Communications, he told us, for you to be able to advance the fight against corruption, you must have that inward conviction that truly I want to be part of this process. If you are not convinced that you want to participate in the fight against corruption, you lack the courage, you are not brave enough to be part of it, then you'd rather pull aside for some time. This action or the campaign requires, somebody who is courageous enough, people who are able to speak the truth, speak your mind. Don't sugarcoat that which is wrong to make it look like, something right. Have that inward conviction that truly I want to be part of this process and I want to strengthen the fight against corruption. Na pole pole tutafika where we want. So, where leaders are courageous, hope is restored in our communities, in the societies, and even the nation at large. So, as we move towards the end, I want to take you through the fourth topic, and maybe after that, I will be able to give our dear listeners an opportunity to ask questions. What practical commitments do we have as Christians? And I would ask, what can we do? There are quite a number. Number one, We must teach clearly that corruption is a sin, and this is specifically to our faith leaders. Teach that corruption is a sin. It breaks God's commandments, it harms others, and it destroys justice. Secondly, each believer must take a personal decision. Make it a personal commitment that I'm refusing bribe, I'm not taking bribe. Don't give bribe, don't receive bribe. Let it be a personal commitment, a personal oath that you are taking at individual level, that you don't want to be part of corruption. This may not always be very easy, but sometimes it may delay you or cost you opportunities. One thing that you have to remember is integrity has a lasting value. When you choose to take or receive a bribe, it will please you, or probably you'll get your needs addressed as at that particular moment. But in the long run, you will suffer. You may need to probably give that bribe anytime you need such services. If you as an individual, maybe you have the money, do you think everybody in the society has that money to give? Some of the people in our societies go even without a meal in a day. Some have maybe one meal, just one meal in a day. So where do you think they will get that money to give out, or that resource to give out in the form of a bribe? You have a land issue back at home. You go to an area chief. You need your problem sorted. Somebody wants to grab your only piece of land. Then the area chief tells you, nipe mbuzi. And back at your home, you do not have even that goat. So where do you get that goat? Is this person solving your problem, or they are adding more problems? Those are the cases that we expect faith leaders to strongly come out to condemn. Support the oppressed. Talk to that area chief that whatever you are doing is very wrong. This is a vulnerable person. They do not have whatever you are requesting from them. Is there another way we could support them? Because when you request for what they don't have, they will be tempted to go steal. They have a problem to get addressed here. They go stealing. They add themselves more problems. And at times they end up in jails for a problem that has been forced on them. Third, we must support those who suffer because they choose honesty. If somebody has chosen to speak honesty, let's support them. Let us not run away from them. And this is a challenge to our faith leaders. You are, in most cases, we run to you as the only source of hope. Because I do not trust, for instance, that my neighbor. I've trusted you as my parish priest. You've seen maybe something bad happened to me. You have a responsibility to condemn that and support me. Some of these things even happen in church setup. Especially, with leadership roles, I've seen it. What is your role as a faith leader in such a context? Do you entertain, all the bad things that happen in the church? Do you condemn? Do you give direction? Then, fourth, we must form young people well. The future depends on them. We must form the young people well. The faith leaders, that is your responsibility. Usikae like umeona mtu amekuja then unasema ule mtoto wa nani ni kazi ngumu sana. While huyu mtoto, as they grew up, ulikuwa unawaona. Kuna tabia mtoto alikuwa nayo, hukukemea ile tabia mbaya. because the attitude was hainihusu. Now the behavior imeshinda watu wote. Mtoto amekuwa tu problematic mpaka mtoto mwenyewe anajua sitakikani kwa society. It is the responsibility of the faith leaders to participate or to take part in the moral formation of young people. The future depends on these people. Let us teach children and youth honesty. Let us teach them responsibility, respect for others, and love for the common good. If we shape their conscience early, we shape a better future. And finally, let us pray for courage to speak the truth. Let us pray for strength to resist temptation. And let us pray for wisdom for our leaders. Up to that point, allow me to get back to the presenter. Maybe we can have, if time allows, we can have a few questions from our dear listeners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Brenda, for that insightful sharing concerning our this week's topic, which is faith leaders as awakeners of conscience. So, dear listeners of Radio Maria Kenya Kisumu, this is your moment. Madam Brenda has gifted you a moment so that you can at least send maybe your text messages or even make phone calls here live using our lines, which is 0792 690036, or you can send your text message on 0740 671428 in case you have any comment or you have any question that you may have for Madam Brenda Akinyi concerning this week's topic, which is faith leaders as awakeners of conscious. And it is very significant that we have this discussion prior to our going into the Lenten season, because during this Lenten season we'll be relying on our religious leaders for guidance during this Lenten season. And so this is just an appeal for our faith leaders, our religious leaders, not only the Catholics but all our faith leaders, so that they can lead us well. Just as Madam Brenda said, they should not preach water and drink wine. They should do what they say, and they should lead by example. So, Madam Brenda, from my end, I'm seeing there's no phone call, there's no message. So maybe you can just give your parting shot, then we can end this segment.
Thank you so much, Brian. Today my parting shot would be, let us remember, that corruption today in our nation, in our society, in my family, it is my responsibility to advance the fight against it. To our faith leaders, true worship will lead to justice. An awakened conscience resists corruption. Faith leaders are called to guide society toward integrity and the common good. If our prayer doesn't change how we live, something is missing. So therefore, may God help us become people of integrity. May our church be a light, and may our conscience remain awake. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Brenda, for taking your time to come to Radio Maria Kenya Kisumu studio so that you can give us your insights concerning week 6 topic, which is faith leaders as awakeners of conscience. So I would like to thank you very much for taking your time. May God bless you. May He be with you as you continue guiding us through this theme of breaking the chains of corruption.
Thank you.
May you have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Jesus.